So then I would say we give it a warm welcome to today's event, which is a webinar around AI and marketplaces. And as FIWARE, I'm in the name of FIWARE Foundation very proud to welcome everybody to a series that we are running with AI Marketplace, that it's called AI Marketplace Meets FIWARE. And I'm sure it's going to be a really exciting session this afternoon in Central European time, where we have a really awesome lineup of speakers, all experts in their field, in AI, in marketplaces, in manufacturing, and anyway, what's going on in Germany, in Europe, and beyond when it comes to AI use cases and market adoption. So a few words at the very beginning. We are registering this session, this event today. This will take us an hour and a half, from surely great keynote speeches up to Q&A. All our audience is open to ask questions, to raise the hand and write in a chat and really interact with us. And we will try to pick questions and any type of topics up during the event even. But we also have foreseen a few Q&As right after our first keynote, or during our first keynote, as well as at the very end of today's event. Just as a little introduction to why we're running this event today. So FIWARE has been running for the last 15 months a huge series of domain-specific events, from smart cities to smart energy, smart industry to smart agri-food, from water to tourism. And technology use cases already events made part of this. Just recently, we ran also one on Smart Mobility Day, actually 3 days in a sequence, but also more technology-oriented ones on blockchain and robotics. All of them always around open source-based technology. And so also today's event that is in collaboration with AI Marketplace perfectly fits into that. So today's virtual event, AI Marketplace Meets FIWARE, is just the next opportunity to give a much deeper insight into technology, but also just already into a market that is growing actually while we're speaking. On the elements, or better, the solutions that will support and encourage market participants or market groups will be presented here today from different angles, and we will discuss what that really means for bringing suppliers and users together, for those who are really investing in this technology, up to those that really need to create a market and adopt, and hopefully also find lots of benefits out of that. There's actually also so many sources I could cite today for just opening up the session. AI is a very wide field, but I'd like to bring one publication that comes from Gartner with the predicts they do regularly, and there's Predicts 2021, where 5 Gartner analysts reported on different predictions from their specific angles, but they came actually quite near to each other and to their analysis when it was about the impact on artificial intelligence. And they say that by 2025, pre-trained AI models will be largely concentrated among 1% of vendors, making responsible use of AI a societally concern. But then also they said, and that's another Gartner report and predicts, that the second order consequences of widespread AI will have a massive social impact, up to the point of making us sometimes unsure if and when we trust our own eyes. And I thought these are really statements that open our mind to everything that's impossible, possible and sometimes we believe it's impossible, but it's upcoming. And so I'm really proud to have this fantastic lineup of speakers today that I'm sure will give more transparency to what's possible. And we will also have a deeper look into something that's called AI Marketplace. That is already a reality. It started as a project roughly 18 months ago, but it has become already reality and is expanding. All started with a German-funded project and 15 consortium leaders to bring something up that is called AI Marketplace for product development within the AI environment. And while we're talking today through the different sections of our agenda, you will hear more and more what a marketplace and AI can really do together. But before we get that far, I want to introduce Vanessa Cann here on the stage. She will present herself in a second, but she will also give the keynote speech today. And I'm very happy to have her as the MD of the AI Federal Association of Germany with us. So Vanessa, the stage is yours, and I'm happy to see yourself introducing to get it started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cristina, for this warm welcome. I do think this is a really important event because building marketplaces, building ecosystems is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we're currently facing in Germany, in building up a real ecosystem where every participant, being the ones that are applying, the ones that are developing AI, and also those that are funding and researching AI, really bring everyone together. And I think that's where we still have a lot of gaps. So it's great that you're all here. I'm the managing director of the German AI Association, called KI-Bundesverband in Germany. I'll introduce the association in just one second, but I think I'll just take you through my presentation. I'm sharing it right now. I hope you can all see it. So yes, I would like to talk to you about the AI state of the art, how it is at the moment, the challenges we're facing, also the chances we have in our ecosystem in Germany and also in the European Union, and also how marketplaces come into this. Because actually what I see, wait, how can I go to the next slide? We have the ideal preconditions. I'm very convinced of this because we have a world-class AI research. So when you look at the numbers of scientific papers on the topic of AI that are released from the European Union, you can see we're actually on the second place. So we're ranking above the USA and China. And this is often seen as the conflict between China and the USA. But actually, when it comes to research, we're already top of the class. Our research institutions are known across the entire world. So I think that's one asset we can really build on. And the second asset I see is that we have a world-class industry. So when you look at the GDP, and this is an estimation of 2021, but the last years have actually are very comparable to this, Germany is ranking fourth in the GDP, and GDP is a great indicator for our economic performance. And our established industry is all in front of this huge transformational wave on seeing how they can really bridge the digital transformation gap and how they can become leaders also in the digital age. And they're looking at AI also as a source and solution for this. So there's very much openness in the established industry towards AI that's also been pushed through COVID. But at the same time, I'm seeing that we're not really world-class at building AI products. And that's one thing I want to focus on here right now. There's different landscapes mapping AI companies across the world. And one thing they do have in common, this is one from CB Insights, is then when you look at the companies that are from Germany or also those that are from the European Union, there's only a couple of them. So this one from CB Insights, for example, maps here Conux and Rasa. Those are both German AI companies. They're often exchangeable, so these landscapes map different companies. But one thing they do have in common, there's only a couple of AI companies from Germany, from the European Union, and most of them are from Asian companies, from Israel, from the US. But the European Union really has to set or has to get going when it comes to building AI companies in the field. And one thing I'm really asking myself and what I'm kind of here to talk to you about is why, the question of why is this the case? Why are we not really good yet in building products? And there's three reasons I really see, one of which is being that AI research is not really transferred into products and into services. So especially spin-offs, so the companies that are built on research results are built out of research institutions, they're often facing obstacles. They have to share their revenue, they share equity, and that's why they're actually starting with their handbrakes on. So often VCs are not really investing in spin-offs, even though they look promising with so many kind of strong research institutions, strong research results coming from Germany and the European Union. But they're so, they have so many problems with kind of sharing spin-offs, sharing equity, sharing also revenue, that VCs are not really interested in investing in spin-offs. And I think that's one of the main problems, and also one of the reasons why AI companies in Germany are still very much rare. So the number of AI startups in Germany is around 300, while a country like Israel, which is only as big as our county of Hesse, has around 1,300 AI startups, so around 4 times as many. And I think that's where we can still kind of have a long way to go. And this is the landscape of Germany, whilst this is the landscape of Israel. So it's just more densely packed. We just don't have that many AI companies. The second reason I see why we're not really top of the class in building AI products is that our AI companies are still lacking funding. So we did a research asking AI startups what their preferred way of funding would be, and many told us it would be venture capital funding. 57.5% said VC funding would be their preferred source of funding. But still, when you ask them how much funding did you get venture capital funding, only 21.1% said yes, that was the source of funding I got. So the gap is at around 36.3%. It's quite large, and that's especially applicable when you look at later stage capital that's missing. The per capita investment in AI startups is only around $4 and 30 times as high in Israel. And that's why in the end, our companies are actually staying quite small. They're staying startups, when you can take it that way. Often the founding teams have to invest a lot of their time in building and perfecting their product, because clients and also VCs are investing in a product that's very perfectly done. That's 100%, if that's even possible, with an AI startup product. Whilst in Israel and in China, these companies get a lot more funding from the beginning on. Investors are investing in the vision, and that's where they're building up their teams, investing in marketing, becoming more visible, and then again, getting more clients, attracting more VC funding. So it's a bit of a circle that these companies from Israel, from China, from the US are getting into, while our startups are just not getting any funding. And then the third point I want to mention, and that's the last point I want to address, is that our AI companies are still seeking clients. So even though we have so many established companies, and especially SMEs here in Germany, our industry is not really investing in AI. Only every 4th company right now has said that it's planning to invest in AI, either in 2021 or 2022 or later. Only every 7th company has invested so far. So there's still quite a ways to go, especially the smaller the company it gets, the less likely it's investing or planning to invest. I'm very optimistic in this field, though, because the discussion is winning in speed. You could see this, especially through the COVID crisis, 2019. Only a few companies had said they discussed AI projects or are planning AI projects. Only 2 have actually already applied AI. And by now, it's already 30% that are planning and discussing AI. It's just the application that's still quite a push ahead. I think we're the status quo is right at kind of people getting informed about AI, attending meetups, getting to know what AI is actually about. And I think the gap is still towards SMEs, especially knowing what the application could be, so what use cases could be for them. I think this is the step we have to go now in the next couple of years, transforming the level of knowledge from knowing that AI is there to knowing what AI is and what AI can do for you as an SME. And I think that's the road ahead we have right now. So I am quite convinced we can become world leaders in AI. There's just quite a lot of topics we have to address in the next couple of years. One of which, how could it be differently in the year that the EU Commission has released its AI regulation, is definitely the topic of clear and proportional regulation. Right now, a lot of AI startups are working with regulation that doesn't really address technology, that doesn't really address AI, so they don't really know how to put and place their business model. So we really need clarity in regulation, and we need proportional regulation when it comes to the AI regulation, so that innovation is actually possible in the future, and that we also can experiment, that we have sandboxes. That's a really important topic that we as an association are focusing on right now. A second topic I want to say is definitely education on AI and entrepreneurship, starting in schools from a very young age, going through university, and then also lifelong learning is, I think, a very important topic right now when a lot of people already in working life have to get to know AI and what AI can do in their professional life. And I think we have to put the universities way closer to entrepreneurship, seeing entrepreneurship as a career path that is actually a valid one. We're very risk averse right now, still often choosing the career path that's a safer one instead of actually fulfilling dreams and going out with visions. And I think that's where we have to really get everyone on board in and seeing entrepreneurship as a valid career path. The third point I want to point out is giving incentives for investors that want to invest in AI companies, and also, of course, established companies that want to invest in AI. The COVID crisis was a really good example where I think incentives could have been placed much more on really investing in AI. And I think that's where we have to go, really giving incentives to educating oneself more about AI and investing in AI. And the fourth one, of course, for this meetup is ecosystems and marketplaces. I said it in the beginning, all these players, be it VCs, be it SMEs and established companies, the research institutions, universities, and then also the startup ecosystem, they're all walking very much parallel. I think we have to bring them more closely together, be it so that there's more of an exchange of, for example, data and knowledge, but also, of course, working together, because they're all very much dependent on each other and they can learn so much from each other. So I think this project is a really important one, the AI marketplace, to push forward for closer collaboration between all these bubbles and fields. To close, just to give you a short insight on who the association, the German AI Association, KI-Bundesverband, is. We're representing more than 320 SMEs, startups, experts in the field. They're all focusing on the development and application of AI technology. And in doing so, we're Germany's largest AI entrepreneur network. We're very much Europe focused. We're focusing on digital sovereignty in the European Union, but working very closely with entrepreneurs across the entire European Union, also with policymakers in Brussels, to push forward digital sovereignty. It's very important for us also to strengthen the AI ecosystem. So we're trying to bring everyone together, especially the AI entrepreneurs, so that they can learn from each other, so that they can build their AI network. And then lastly, fostering openness and innovative strength, especially in the established industry. I think that's a very important point for us. I want to invite you all to our European AI Forum. As a last note, we've built this amazing family of AI associations across the European Union with the Croatian, Swedish, French, Netherlandish, or Dutch AI Austria, so the Austrian AI Association, Bulgarian, Slovenian, Polish Association on board. In the meanwhile, if you know anyone who should join our family, please reach out. The European AI Forum has grown really to a big conference that's happening twice a year and tries to bring together policymakers across the entire European Union and entrepreneurs. So please, check out our website and register for our event. It would be great to see you there. And let's tackle AI together. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion and your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. This was an extremely interesting run through to what I would say you see today as opportunities, and still surely also some gaps and maybe threats, but also how really hands-on you guys are working, especially with the Bundesverband, or the Federal Association of Germany for AI. We may give it a minute or two for questions still. So I would be interested if a small, medium-sized company approaches you and to become a member in the association, what is the benefits they could get from it? Where, especially when very often they have issues in transparency and understanding where market opportunities are. What can the association help?
So we have two categories of members. We have what we call partners, which is more like the established companies that are interested in getting to know AI companies and getting to know what AI can do for them. So we're helping in the matchmaking process of the AI companies and SMEs, so established companies, SMEs, and corporates. That's one field where we're very much into. So helping our AI companies find clients and helping established companies find innovation, when you take it that way. We're also, of course, the voice of AI companies in Germany. So we're a political voice, talking to many stakeholders, political stakeholders in the regions of Germany, but also in Bundestag, in the federal government in Brussels. So we're representing, showing on the basis of a lot of use cases and business models how regulation has to be defined so that it helps innovation and does not slow it down. So that's where we come into a lot. We're also currently building up an investor network, helping AI companies find investment, because that's, as I said in my presentation, also one of the large issues. So yeah, it's basically really finding where we can help AI companies, which we also see in kind of finding clients, helping them represent themselves and finding investment. And that's where we reach out and use our network.
Yeah, thank you. And if you allow me, two small questions still, maybe that we can answer in 30 seconds. So one is, I know you are also active on a European basis. What is your activities there?
Yeah, so we have this conference that takes place twice a year, where we really want to give just a platform to entrepreneurs to exchange on a very high level with stakeholders. We had Vestager, for example, there, Margarete Vestager, or Nicola Beer, who's the Vice President of the European Parliament, and so on. So it's very high level where entrepreneurs can actually be heard. That's where we're working like on a regulatory basis. But we're also trying to, we figured out that actually the view of German entrepreneurs, and often like all of Western Europe entrepreneurs, so be it France or Austria, is very similar, but it differs a lot to what often the like Bulgarian, even the Serbian or Croatian people and entrepreneurs think. So we're actually trying to have a more inclusive approach, not only bringing entrepreneurs together so that they can work together, also share data together maybe, and start projects together on a European basis, not only in Germany, but also to just see what is like the standpoint and the viewpoint of European entrepreneurs across the European Union, and not having this German focus that is often apparent in discussions.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Vanessa. We have one more question, but here I would love, if that's okay for you, if you could share maybe a link, because the question comes from Leon, asking what are the requirements to participate to your association. And as we need to look a little bit to our agenda and timing, if that would be okay, if you could share maybe a link where people can associate with you or just get more information. I think this could be very valuable for everybody.
Oh, no problem. I'll share it in a second.
Okay, thank you so much. Then thanks Vanessa for this really great insight, and I think also a good opening to any topic that comes throughout the next, roughly 1 hour here together with us. And with that, I would like to introduce Ilkka. Ilkka is a director, Center of Knowledge and Innovation Research at the Aalto University School of Business. And I know he has about 20 other titles. So he will introduce himself and then talk about Europe Fit for the Digital Age. And we want to learn about excellence and truth in artificial intelligence, and also a little bit what you think about marketplaces. So Ilkka, the place or the stage is yours.
Thank you, Cristina, and many thanks for inviting me over for this talk. I think it's an excellent presentation by Vanessa on that. What is the current situation and the current status when you compare Europe to other countries like Israel in this case. Myself, I've been working for around AI and ICT and then also the data analytics side of things for a better part of 20 years. And during that time, obviously, the technologies and the companies, and especially the startup development around the topic, varies in different countries. Here in the Nordics and in Finland, we have quite a few startups that are working on the AI field, and some of them are already finding exactly the things that were mentioned by Vanessa, that it is difficult for them to get funding. It is sometimes you need to do a lot of educational awareness creation in order for the clients to understand what it is that when you say AI and what it really means. So with that, I will go into my presentation, and I'm happy to entertain any questions after the presentation. Here we are. Good. I'll put it. There we go. So referring to what Cristina was very kindly saying about the other titles, I put two of them in there. So basically, not only I'm an academic and run a research institute at the Aalto University School of Business, but I also chair an association in Finland that has been in existence since the early 1980s to push something that was then called the Information Society, but is currently working, for instance, with the SME sector in Finland to really make them to understand that what are the benefits and what is the value of using digital technologies in their line of business. And I know that there are similar activities in Germany in place as well. And at the same time, we work very closely with the industry. So at the university, besides writing the academic articles, we're actually working together with industry players here in the Nordics and in Finland around AI and advanced data analytics. And through that work, we are very intensively working together with their business teams on the business models and the cases that need to be controlled and understood when you apply AI for your line of business. And I would say that the main challenge currently exists, that there are indeed teams and experts within the organizations, but at the same time, you really need to educate that what are the realities of using AI or advanced analytics in the existing business lines, so that we're not only talking about optimization, but we're really talking about data intensive and data driven business modeling and business cases as such. Here is a quote that I really like. FIWARE comes from the University of California at Berkeley, where I studied as well. And what he was saying already in 1999 was that if you only look at the technology, then you will fail if you don't understand the economics around that. What I put in there is underline the law there, because the economists like to think that there are economic laws, but we all know that John Maynard Keynes was saying that economics is the dismal science, so that actually it's a lot about behavior, and a behavior laws change depending on who you talk and what type of people there actually are. But the truth in this quote is that in many cases, when you discuss with the companies, be they Finnish companies or anywhere else, the main arguments that you need to have replies to is that what are the growth opportunities that you will have when you deploy AI technologies, will it help to increase the competitiveness of the company or the sector as such? And when you think of what it is that we need to master here in Europe in order to really be part of the game that Vanessa was referring to, there are three things that we need to be absolutely clear that what are the implications of AI and advanced analytics for the three areas. So first, data and platform economy. I think we have reached a stage already where the maturity is here. That you understand that we're now more talking about decentralized platforms. We're talking about federated platforms, federated data flows, instead of thinking about the winner takes all type of business models that have existed in the platform economy for some time. At the same time, we are building together ecosystems, not only within the verticals, but also cross-vertical ecosystems, where we're really looking into the cases that what is the advantage for all the players, and how the data sharing is, for instance, done in a way that it benefits not only one dominant company, but how it benefits all the companies participating in that ecosystem. And that work is ongoing. We have clear examples here, for instance, in Finland, and the two examples that I will be showing after this slide will showcase that what it is that we're actually doing here. Computing power or abundance of computing power is here to stay. We know that you can do things in the cloud. You can store your data in the cloud. You can do edge computing. You can have all the different technologies in place that did not exist some time ago. And here in Europe, we should focus on two things here. Instead of looking into alternatives to some of the existing service providers, we should actually look into the ways that how do we control the data that is put into the cloud, how we maintain the management of that data in ourselves. And also at the same time, we should look into different policies and different business programs that actually gives us the internal knowledge, so that we don't outsource the knowledge. We don't outsource in a traditional way the IT skills and knowledge, but we really develop that internal way of doing things. And here we are in Finland, for instance, engaged currently with 30 largest companies, industrial companies, in really educating their existing workforce to understand that what it is that you can do with AI and what it is that you can do with data analytics. But at the same time, it's always tied into the business case of that company or a specific challenge, so that there is a link to the existing business as well. And I know that there is a lot of discussion around Europe, around Germany and Finland about what is the future of work. Currently, obviously, I would say that a lot of the things are focused on that. What are the not the gains, but really the negative effects of using automation and AI, at least when you look into the media. But at the same time, we're working here in Finland, for instance, with the trade unions, and I just had a call with the construction trade union about that. How do you can benefit from the different ways of using AI technologies and automation in order to really understand that you make the construction site a safe place for all the workers. So those are the type of things that we need to really have at hand when we go forward with the European digital age development as such. And here is the first case that I would like to spend some time with. And the reason why I put this one in here is that it's business driven. It's been driven by the Finnish construction industry and the real estate industry, which are not traditionally the first movers when you think about advanced analytics and AI or digital at large. So what it is that we basically did in here is that we had the federation of both the employer side and the workers side working together in thinking about that how in their working environment and in the environment where they have their business, we could come up with some ways of harmonizing the different data flows and create new services on top of that harmonized data. So we built a platform where we have open APIs for the third parties to come in and join that platform and start using that platform for selling actually in that marketplace their services, added value services to the real estate companies, for example, or the construction companies. And at the same time, we created an ecosystem where that construction ecosystem and real estate ecosystem that we put together is actually in active interaction with the other industries, so that what it is that we're doing in here can be applied in the other traditional sectors, be that manufacturing or the maritime logistics or other things. And that work is now going forward in a way that we are able to come up with really cross-vertical solutions that can be used here in order to really tackle, say, for instance, CO2 reporting or the transparency in the material flows, and also the twin transition issue within the manufacturing industry here in Finland. So I'm happy to discuss those in more detail. Then applying AI and developing services on the top of that has been very much on the agenda of cities, whether you call them smart cities or just cities. But the whole idea there's been that you have a lot of different data flows and you have a lot of different data storages, but basically the ideal position would be to build more predictive decision making on top of that data that already exists in there. And in most cities, the current situation is such that that data resides in silos. And when you have that type of a situation, you're basically entering a very complex discussions with the cities to try to make them to open up those silos and really have horizontal development instead of vertical development within the cities. And here in Finland, we actually created a project with 3 large cities that basically, for the first time, were able to agree that the type of public services, for instance, in education, that they would like to open up for the other cities, they would be using the same platform and the same data storages to really understand that they can do forecasting, for instance, in educational purposes, or other type of predictions that will help them to really direct the public services in a new way. And what we call them is the human centricity of these service networks. So for those of you who are aware, here in Finland, a couple of years back, we started a momentum towards what we call My Data. And that My Data is basically creating a permission layer for who can access the data of the citizens and the individuals, so personal data for that matter. But some of the principles there are already now being used in the industrial data sharing efforts as well. And those efforts are pushed forward not by the government, but by the companies and by a government-owned think tank called Sitra, which is currently also fairly active in working together with the European Commission on the My Data principles and with the smart cities in something called OASC, which is mentioned in there, the Open Agile Smart Cities network, where you have 100+ cities working together. So in my kind of a brief introduction here, I would like to say that we would try to be fairly pragmatic, to take sometimes a very abstract concept that what are the implications of using digital technologies, advanced data analytics, or AI to that matter. And when you deploy that within your organization, what are the technology challenges and barriers that you need to understand, how you actually change the existing ways of doing business or conducting your building your services in a novel way, and where to apply the AI, and in which areas you don't. So basically where it is the best match in that manner. But I will end my presentation there, and then I'll very happy to take any questions after the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ilkka. Fantastic. Thanks for this really nice keynote that brought us already from a wider view now into already some very concrete use cases and clear opinions how AI should be applied. We maybe have a minute for a question now, unless somebody wants to just still throw in a message through the chat. I would like to ask you, you mentioned outsourcing and outsourcing to see that as a little bit more sensitive and however, making sure that, let's say, a country, a city, maybe a company that works on AI should actually really be, should trust them to what they're doing and really go forward. How would this approach that you mentioned, or this being careful or aware, work when it comes to marketplaces? Do you see this as a is it contradictory, or do you think this is combinable?
I think you can combine both. So basically, the marketplace that I showcasing there for the construction and the real estate industries was done in a co-creation mode with the companies participating in that. So that when we started talking about marketplaces and then building a marketplace where those companies could find more value-add services, they were part of the process. So that they understood in a transparent fashion that how and what type of services would there be, and how those services would be the best fit for their needs as well. When I was still working for primarily for the IT sector, one of the first questions that I always got from the companies was that, or actually an argument, they said that you don't understand the logic of my business, or that we are unique. And basically what happens there is that you can create services that are common and that share the common principalities, but at the same time you have to have a very delicate discussion and understanding with your customer company in that how do you really make it feel that it's part of their core business and it serves them in a way. And I think in the ICT field, sometimes we have services and platforms in the market that don't really listen to the customer. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's something we have already discussed also within our meetings in the KI-Marktplatz or AI Marketplace. So I think there your feedback is very welcome, because it gives another proof point just that we have to face arguments like that in different occasions. So thanks a lot, Ilkka. That was very insightful. And with that, we move now even a little bit deeper into a concrete case. We now come really to the so-called AI marketplace. And I'm happy to announce Ulrich Ahle, the CEO of FIWARE Foundation. He's been also, beside many other engagements he's running, also since day one within the marketplace project for AI. And just a few weeks ago, when AI Marketplace was launched in the very first version, he was part of the opening event or go-to-market event. And with that, I'm very happy to say, Ulrich, we want to learn more. What's going on there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Cristina, and good afternoon to all of you who dialed in and following our discussion and presentation here. In this case, about the AI marketplace, we heard from Vanessa about some obstacles and how AI is adapted in the German industry, or in general in the German market. And let me start with an analysis the German IT organization Bitkom did last year. So it's quite a recent analysis. And they found out that out of the companies with more than 20 employees, only 6 of them are using AI already, and 22% are planning to do so in the near future. And out of those companies who are already using AI, 69% are using it in marketing, 40% in finance, 25% in predictive maintenance. And this was for me the real surprise on the one side. On the other side, the driver for the project we are doing in a quite large consortium, the AI Marketplace project. Only 1% is using AI in the product development process. And this was really, really a surprise. And
Das habe ich gefunden.
Sorry, I need to handle here with Alexa. So, and this is the main focus where the project AI Marketplace will provide solutions to bring providers of AI solutions together with users of AI solutions. In this case, users working in the development processes of manufacturing companies. And very often it is not an awareness, but an implementation problem. And what was also a surprise to me in this Bitkom analysis they did, that out of those companies which are not yet using AI, 56% are expecting high benefits from AI in their product development processes. So 1% is doing it, 50% is expecting high values. What's the reason behind it, and why? Why are not more companies using AI in product development? What are the obstacles? And as I said, also when Vanessa was talking about obstacles here. And we tried to analyze these obstacles. And what we found out is that there are 5 main obstacles when it comes to the usage, as I said, of AI in product creation or product development processes. Missing trust and data sovereignty. Here we are really dealing with company secrets. Development data are very often company secrets, and there is a certain hesitation to give this data maybe outside of the firewalls of the companies, to bring it into cloud solutions, and there is not sufficient trust in the handling of data. Then we have very often incompatible interfaces and incompatible data models. We have data silos, and it is important to break down the silos. We have, and that is really very often the case, insufficient know-how about available AI solutions. So which are solutions outside there which could help and improve and speed up my development process? And missing know-how, competences, and capacities on the user side. And in some areas also a limited availability of training data. So to train the AI systems, the machine learning systems, for this we need data, and they are quite often not existing sufficiently. So, and 3 out of the partners of the AI Marketplace consortium, where a lot of other partners, also industry partners are in, joined here the forces to overcome these obstacles when using AI in the product creation. And it is on the one side ProStep. ProStep IFIP is an association of nearly 200 mainly using companies, so automotive, aerospace companies, machine builders, and so on. And ProStep IFIP is dealing with engineering IT. So all the IT which is used in engineering processes, and ProStep has defined a standard for exchange of product data. So this is one of the standards we will use here to make it easier to incorporate AI solutions in a given IT ecosystem. International Data Spaces is providing architectures and solutions to implement data sovereignty, so to create trust in AI-based solutions. And finally, FIWARE, providing a lot of open source software building blocks to realize marketplaces and also data spaces for AI solutions. And the specific role of FIWARE, as I'm here mainly representing FIWARE in this session, FIWARE allows to set the necessary standards for AI marketplaces platforms, and we are advising on the selection of technologies, of reference architectures, and also standard APIs. You remember one of the obstacles was missing standard APIs and also standard data models. And we are in this project supporting the building of the digital platform. This AI marketplace finally is a digital platform with our wide expertise in building marketplaces for digital services and also deploying FIWARE components. And we are using also APIs, especially when it comes to monetization of data coming from another global organization called TM Forum. And as I mentioned before, this is all open source, meaning the results of the project will be integrated then in the FIWARE catalog of open source components and will be available for everyone for free on GitHub. These are some building blocks which are required to create data spaces and also marketplaces for AI solutions. And I will address only a few of them. One, for example, here in the center, trusted exchange. And this is a main role of IDSA to come up with functionalities to enable the creator of data to determine and to technically enforce what someone who gets access to his or her data is allowed and able to do with the data. And especially this able, the technical enforcement of the regulations is a very important part to create trust. Parts we are bringing in data exchange APIs, data models. These are very important topics coming from the FIWARE side. And also ProStep will bring in data models, standards, but also activities in the area of SLA management, for example, for such solutions.
Ulrich, as we need to look a little bit at time, let's see if we can then still have a minute for a question.
Okay,
then we can go for one more minute.
Yeah, then I will finalize with this high-level picture of the marketplace. So we will create a marketplace where different AI solutions are shown, like on a farmer's market where you can see different vegetables, and they all have an offer description, so which terms and conditions are there, pricing models, data models, and so on. And this is very important, by using standard interfaces and data models, it is quite easy to simply pick such a solution and to integrate it into the consumer application landscape on the user side. And this shows a bit the idea and the concept behind this AI marketplace. And with this, I would like to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ulrich. Still, I think we should give it one minute for a short question and maybe even a little bit shorter answer. But I want to ask you this kind of insider question, because obviously, as I'm part of this project too, I know a little bit more than our audience outside. And I know we're working on something that we call the FIWARE Smart World, and a kind of a whole world that is built out of Lego bricks. And this allows people from whatever kind of background to see really hands-on how certain digitalization and also AI solutions in the future can work. And we're actually working on 2 modules. Would you like to just give a very short insight on this kind of FIWARE Smart World where AI will be placed in the near future too?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it is used, this Lego world, or this FIWARE Smart World built out of Lego bricks, to make such digital solutions tangible and better understandable. And here we will create 2 modules, as you said. One will be the marketplace, so a real representation of a marketplace where providers of AI solutions are showing their offerings, and where users of the solutions can get an overview of what's available on the market and also buy such solutions. And in the other module, we will show how AI solutions are used in the product development process, in that case of the manufacturer of large machines. And this manufacturer has a target for when developing a new machine to use as much as possible existing parts. And here the AI solution will help the company to identify already existing parts which are fulfilling the requirements of the development engineer without the necessity to construct and to develop a new part. So this is increasing the reusability, making development processes faster, more efficient, and more time efficient, and also more cost efficient. And we plan to have this ready for the IoT Solutions World Congress in Barcelona in autumn of this year.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Ulrich. And I guess this is quite exciting because it will really help everybody who does not have yet this wide vision, or maybe this imaginative behavior in understanding everything and imagining how solutions could work, to see it a little bit more hands-on and even play around with it. So I think we can really be excited to see that. And by the way, not only in Barcelona, we are also planning to have it in ITS Hamburg and maybe a few places throughout fall, should we be able to run face-to-face events, hopefully by then. So a big thank to Ulrich Ahle, the CEO of FIWARE Foundation. And with a little bit of a time delay, I will now move to somebody who is able, from, let's say, after we heard all the already use cases and the more, let's say, market view, to give us an insight about what a frame around that is, that can be from law to business models. And there is almost no better person, I can say, than to bring Dr. Jeannette Gorzala on stage. She's attorney at law and has a long experience in AI, but also from an investment perspective and even from a user and startup perspective, a wide experience. And she will talk about regulatory proposal for artificial intelligence, looking a little bit at impact and opportunities. And with that, Jeannette, I hand over to you. That's your stage.
Thank you to the audience for joining us this afternoon. And I will now share my screen with you. I have prepared a few slides to take you through the regulatory proposal of the European Union. So 1 second. I think everybody should be able to see the screen now.
Yes, it's there. So if you can go in presentation mode, we're perfect.
Few seconds. Okay.
Thanks.
So, thank you. So as we all know, artificial intelligence is part of a wide family of technology which is fastly developing and which may have a huge impact on economies and also the societies. Artificial intelligence allows us to improve resource allocation, to improve operations, and to be more efficiently. Also looking at the numbers, it's quite impressive. Already today, the global market for artificial intelligence application and products is estimated at around $60 billion, and the growth rates are significant. So looking at the next 7 years, growth rates, annual average growth rates of over 40% are predicted, leading to the increase of this AI market up to more than $700 billion. And also the use cases for AI are very different and encompass a wide field of appliances. For example, healthcare, travel, transport, logistics, up to research and development. And given this in mind, given this huge potential and this huge impact, I would also like to touch upon a few startup facts. My colleague Vanessa already expanded on the startup landscape in Europe. Here, also touching upon this shortly, in Europe we have about 1,600 early stage AI startups. So compared to Israel, there is still some potential to catch up here. Most of the startups being founded in the UK, and as a second about France and Germany with around 200 to 300 startups. So the AI landscape in Europe is still very small, given to the issues Vanessa already expanded on. But we're improving slowly and steadily. So in 2013, approximately every 50th startup had an AI Connex. Last year, it was already 1 out of 12 startups. So AI and technology is picking up in the European Union. And kind of like from the sectors or from the fields these startups are working, healthcare and well-being is on the first space, which is also fueled through the COVID-19 development, followed by finance, media, entertainment, and retail. Of course, these are only the most prominent use cases for AI. As we heard in the beginning, the appliance for AI practices is very wide. And now the European Union, after having evaluated the AI landscape, AI use cases in the Union very thoroughly and for several years, has come up with a proposal, the Artificial Intelligence Act, to give the European Union a regulatory framework for AI systems and for AI use cases, not for the technology itself. And so this year in April, the European Union published its proposal, which is built on a technical definition of AI and regulates certain AI use cases. As you can see, it's the first time a definition for AI systems is being introduced, and this definition is quite wide. So it might cover quite a few startups, use cases, and also corporate appliances of AI technologies. So there in the AI definition, you will find machine learning, reinforcement learning, and deep learning, which clearly is in the AI field and in the center of this technological development, but also techniques applied like statistical methods, research and search and optimization, and logic and knowledge-based approach, which makes this definition quite wide, and therefore a lot of technology is in the scope of this AI definition. Keeping in mind that the European Commission only wants to regulate certain use cases. So going forward, taking into consideration if a startup company or a corporate falls into the scope of technologies will be very important. To give you a brief overview, the Commission proposes a risk-based approach and has come up with 4 categories based on the risk they consider associated with the certain use cases. So there are certain use cases of AI which the Commission considers to bear an high and unbearable risk for the freedoms and the rights of the citizens, and hence these use cases are considered prohibited AI and will be forbidden in the future. Then there are high-risk use cases of AI. These AI appliances and services shall be permitted, but are subject to certain regulations, requirements, and compliance. And these compliance requirements are the core of the proposed Artificial Intelligence Act and make up the good part of the 108-page extensive regulation proposal that is currently being discussed. Then the other category is medium risk, where certain transparency obligations for AI use cases are imposed, and then minimal risk or no risk AI appliances which shall be permitted without any additional ado. I would like to do a short deep dive into the most interesting categories, which would be the unacceptable risk and the high risk cases, because to give you a short overview here. So the prohibited AI use cases are social scoring. So systems that evaluate the citizens' behaviors and give kind of like beneficial points or kind of like deduct points, resulting in some restrictions of citizens, for example, in services and freedoms. So this is something the European Union wants to prohibit and forbid in the future. Then biometric identification on public spaces. This shall only be permitted in certain cases for law enforcement. And then AI use, where AI is used for subliminal manipulation or exploits certain traits. So the age when children are exploited, when it leads to psychological or physiological harm, or disabled persons. And here, the use of AI in this field shall be absolutely prohibited and subject to high fines of up to 6% of worldwide turnover or of up to $30 million. So this is quite an extensive fine. For the high-risk AI use cases are considered, for example, where AI is applied in the HR field, for example, for evaluation of employees or where you evaluate applications. In the field of education, where the access to education or universities is done on AI system basis. Other uses of AI in the biometrical field, AI which is used in certain harmonized areas, for example, in the medical device regulation appliances, which will then in the future potentially highly impact medtech and health tech fields. AI to evaluate creditworthiness, or AI in certain infrastructure spaces. So these uses of AI systems are considered high risk, and then in the future shall be only permitted subject to compliance. This compliance is very extensive, and just to sum it up, to give you a short idea what these compliance regulations will entail. So the system will need to be documented, it will need to be transparent, users will need to be given instructions how to use the system. For training of these systems, high quality training testing data will need to be used, also of course considering GDPR compliance. And certain measures need to be taken, of course, in the field of accuracy, robustness, and cybersecurity. And another important aspect, human oversight shall always be given for systems that apply it in this field. The high-risk AI systems shall only be able to be put on the market after these compliance requirements are met. Then providers of such AI systems need to do a conformity assessment. This will in most cases be done by the provider of the system itself, only in certain cases by another authority or notified body. Then these high-risk AI systems need to be recorded in an EU database, and then only these systems might be placed on the market. So this is quite a process that needs to be considered when working with AI in this field or planning to go in this field. And also it's very important to consider these things in advance, because afterwards, working with the systems might entail a lot of cost when the systems need to be significantly changed and amended. And also the documentation takes some time to be put in place. So these things would be an advice to consider this beforehand and keep a close eye on this regulation. Then to be complete, just a short glance on the obligations for medium risk systems. So here there are kind of like labeling obligations for deepfakes and notification obligations when humans interact with an AI system, when it is not obviously that they're interacting with the system and not a human person. So the example would here be for chatbots. And when emotional or biometric categorization is applied, here also users need to be notified that this is done. And for the green part, so with minimal or no risk, here there are no mandatory requirements. Of course, some optional standards or voluntary codes might develop in the future. This is only a short overview of the regulation, which is, as I already said, very extensive and containing a lot of requirements, obligation, and information for users also. And now I would like to go a little bit deeper into the next steps and also the impact on the startup field.
Jeannette, we have like 1 to 2 minutes to go.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Now just shortly summing up. So the proposal since April is now on the table, and it's now being deliberated with the Parliament and the Council. It is expected that these deliberations and discussions will be finished and finalized in half a year, 9 months, and that the Act will be ratified and passed sometime mid or late next year, and then become into force. For systems that are already in place, may also be kind of like obliged to comply with the regulation if significant changes are done. This is the first step, the core. Then accompanying this framework, the EU plans to publish a proposal on the liabilities. So how shall liabilities be addressed in relation to AI systems? This is something that is being expected at the end of this year or early next year. And of course, we've been talking a lot about regulation, which is sometimes kind of like viewed with scrutiny to innovation, startups, and the investment landscape. And here, the European Union plans to introduce an AI regulatory sandbox, plans to invest a lot in AI. So there's a EU Horizon program, and they plan to spend 1 billion annually in this AI investment landscape. And also kind of like look into the challenges and to promotion of startups and small and medium enterprises. One aspect, of course, is the regulatory sandbox. Another aspect is, of course, the investment. And a third aspect that is being deliberated very much on the union level and also in the communities and hubs are marketplaces, because most AI startups are turning to the B2B sector. And here, marketplaces are a huge opportunities for startups to dock onto potential corporate partners, to be trustworthy partners, and to expand. And of course, also to get assistance, investment, and partners in implementing and enforcing these regulations. And this is kind of like the conclusion. And thank you very much for your attention. It was a great pleasure for me this afternoon to give this short keynote on the regulatory sandbox and the regulatory landscape. And I hope we stay in touch. And in case there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Jeannette. This was also an amazing presentation, wonderfully done and very crispy. I hope that Paul and Leon will forgive me that I will, however, ask one short question to Jeannette, and I would ask you to, if you can, to answer in 30 seconds. A little bit of personal question. Do you think that the regulatory approach that is taken here will help businesses to grow and to grow faster, or do you think it will somehow be maybe an over-regulatory approach, and we would still need to discuss a little bit in the future how to really handle that to keep or to become and then stay competitive in the world?
Short answer to this. Of course, there is always the topic of over-regulation, but I think the thing is to promote a trustworthy AI. And this regulation makes it possible. Of course, at the beginning, it will be, I won't say shock, but it will be kind of like very challenging to take in the act, take in the responsibilities, and to see what needs to be done for the startups, corporates, and investors. But I think in the long term, mid to long term, this will promote trustworthy AI and will promote the landscape, because a huge issue or a huge burden is a liability. And when the companies don't know kind of like, what am I liable for, or what are the regulations, they hesitate to go to market. And when
super. Yeah, thanks, Jeannette. This is, I think you gave me the perfect bridge now, so this is why I just take it on. So thanks a lot. And I'll take two of the things that we just saw and heard from you. So one is the road that's pointing into the future from your last slide, and the other one is that trust that companies in the future really require. And myself has worked many years in a manufacturing automation environment where if trust is not there, or things go wrong, you can really harm your brand and being also banned from the market forever. And so we know this is a very sensitive field, and this is why what you just presented is so important. And with that, I want to introduce Paul Hofmann, Dr. Paul Hofmann, who will give us a bit of a visionary view based on his long-term experience of many years in different companies, how the future could look like in manufacturing with AI. And with this, Paul, please introduce yourself, and the next 10 minutes are yours.
Hi, thank you, Cristina. My name is Paul Hofmann. I say hi to everyone. It's a pleasure to be talking here. And I have been around in different roles. I was at BASF in the IT department, built a technical IT plant manager, And then I left the so-called old economy behind. I have seen a disruption. My colleagues thought I'm crazy to go from BASF to SAP, but I told them at one point, SAP will be bigger. And then with SAP, I went the second time back to the US and was there the VP research. And then I started 2 startups as the CTO. One was Saffron Technology, where we competed against Watson and was the first AI startup that Intel invested and then acquired. And the other one was Spacetime Insight, an IoT company that Nokia acquired. And then last but not least, I was the CTO of AI and data science at Accenture. And I am going to look into the future of AI. And of course, nobody knows the future of AI, but I have seen and been at some very cool stations. And one was, we standardized on Oracle in '92 in BASF. And at that time, the IT department at BASF was just a tiny bit shy of the size of Oracle. And in 2010, we put the first time an SAP system in Amazon Web Services, so about 11 years ago. And I did it with my neighbor up there in the Santa Cruz Mountains, who was the CTO of Lionsgate. And I bought Amazon stock when it was $20. So where do we go in AI, and especially in manufacturing? And I will make here basically one main point, because we don't have much of time, but I think it may be an answer to the question, why do we see such hesitance? Why are we so hesitant, especially in Germany with AI? So the future is, of course, the dark factory, a fully autonomous production, and there will be no human beings in it. And I will show you a video of the first dark warehouse, no human beings there, fully automated, and it is in JD.com in Shanghai. So we'll talk about that. But how do we get to the fully autonomous production? That is an interesting question. And I observed that there are 2 approaches. One is we just go on and go on the automation. We have been in automation for the last 30 years and maybe even longer, if you how you define it. But in plant automation, we have been for a long time, and it's just consequent to go on and on and on and have no human intervention at the one hand. But on the other hand, we have AI, and we are just starting to apply it, and we have a lot of human input there. So how do those 2 come together? And then I will finish with some challenges. Some are still academic. There are problems we don't know how to solve, and the others we have mentioned, they are social. So this is basically where we are going to do this. And here I'll show you in short the video I talked about. Is basically a warehouse in, I have to fumble now a little bit with this thing here. It is a warehouse in JD.com, which is, I have to get the right and that you get the sound. So this is a, it is a, I hope you can see this now. This is basically belongs to Alibaba. JD.com is a bit smaller than Amazon, but together with Alibaba, they are the biggest marketplace and logistics company in the world. And in order to, actually maybe we turn off the sound if I can manage that. We go on, and now I make it like this. So I hope you can see it. I'm not sure how this goes over it.
Yeah, we can see it. And
you can see that basically it shows you the part of automation. There's one part where I would like you to pay attention, which I like very much. I mean, here, these robots, they come from Mujin. Mujin means ghost. It's a spin-off of the Tokyo University. They're probably making the best and most sophisticated robots in the world. And yeah, at one point you will see, and it's coming now, that when you get the package from Amazon, you have a lot of paper in it. Here, the cardboard is made exactly to the size of your package. And there's no lights, you know, this is just shown for introduction, it's dark. And what do you have to do in order to be able to construct this, to have this throughput, something that runs day and night without humans? If you have been a plant manager, as I was, and others, of course, too, what is it? You must not have any problem. If there's a problem in such a machine, it's so complex, very hard to fix. This is what you avoid. So you do everything that it is predetermined. This part here, you can see too in Amazon, where you put the packages on those little robots and then they move around and get fixed. So I think at that point, we stop here. To move again here a little bit, but you basically, you get the gist. The gist is that there cannot be anything unpredictable there. And this is one way to go, and JD.com has done it. The other way is the way that Amazon goes. They could have done that too. Wouldn't be so easy to do it in different locations all over the world. And they have decided to keep the human in the loop. So they have a lot of AI in their warehouses for the pass optimization. You know, when you put the pieces together, put them in the box, and then you put the boxes on the trucks. So there's always a human there. What they gain is much more AI than the dark warehouse. JD.com, you cannot put in much AI because it has to be very predictable. In the future, those two approaches will merge and we will have fully automated non-deterministic systems. So the dark warehouse, as you have seen it in JD.com, is super deterministic. Nothing can go wrong. In an Amazon warehouse, a lot of things can go wrong. You can have a part that is not there when you try to put it in. Amazon doesn't have a real-time warehouse management, as we know, many other things. And then you have a human who takes the last decision. Of course, the dark factory of the future has no human. There's no human looking into it. Will be all without humans. And now let's see, you see here the American model versus the European Asian model. And as we know, Germany has as many robots as people, so more, even more. I think only Japan has more. In America, there are much less robots than people. It's not even half. So America is not so much in automation. We are very strong in automation. And there are those 50–60% of companies say, no, I go the automation route. I get more or less the same. And for the next 5, maybe even 10 years, this is true. But for the next 7 to 15 years, this is, of course, not the right approach. And then we go on to the next slide here. So the state of the art is to combine prediction and optimization. Basically, we have seen predictive maintenance. Ulrich showed it, and we have talked about optimization. And in the end, that's what it is. It doesn't just help you to do a prediction, when will we start a lot, when will something going to break. We have to combine it. We have to simulate the whole system. And this goes under decision-making under uncertainty. And you might have heard of this. This is the Go player. That's what you see here up on the right. It's, Google has shown this is the first time that a machine, an AI machine, won against a human and had different strategies than the human have. Was many times more creative and winning. So that we know how to do. And it's very different than playing chess because we have a probability for a move. So mathematically speaking, this is very unique. But now the real problem is that we have to optimize systems of systems. So imagine you have a couple of Go players and they play for different rules and you want to win overall, right? You have 100 Go players, you want to win overall. That's the practical problems we have in the reality. Think of CNC machines. It's not so difficult. We have done this. We optimize a CNC machine, but then there comes the other steps, the next process, cutting, drilling, and so on. And to combine them is an academic problem that is not so easy to solve. And the other challenge is, of course, the social challenge. We as human beings, we are far behind of what can happen, of what we can imagine. We are so far behind. And I mean, like I said, I have been there when we said we do all the standards, we do SQL and all of that. And in the end, it was basically one company that did it all. So that's my talk. And with that, I open it up for question. I want to give you one last statement that I am sure, and it's not even from me, it comes from my friend Andrew Ng, who is a professor, or who was a professor at Stanford, then brought deep learning to Google, had the fight with Peter, left, was a long time at Baidu, I think, and now came back, and it's one of the big startups in AI and manufacturing, because amazingly enough, like we have seen before, that most of the AI is still used in the front end, in marketing or so. But the point is, AI is like electricity. So this is when there was the steam engine, and you know, you had the steam engine somewhere, and you had the shaft, and it went from one building to another one, and everything was arranged like that. And then there came electricity, it was decentralized. And this is such a change, we cannot even imagine how it's going to be. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Actually, the way you made your presentation gives me the big, how can I say, like I would actually love to listen another hour to you, because I'm sure you would have so much more to tell. But we also want to give some space to Leon, who is today with us, and maybe what we can do is we can combine a little bit, Paul, what you just explained, or try to paint a little bit a possible future, the fantasy we can see around it, with what's already happening in KI and AI marketplace with Leon, and also where those who are working on this huge project believing the way is going, because also here there's a lot of things clear, but there is also a lot of music for the future where we are not yet so sure how this will be going. And maybe with that, I would introduce Leon now. Leon is the project coordinator. And if Paul, if you can still stay a few minutes with us, this would be fantastic. And maybe we just have Leon introducing himself, and then we start a little Q&A, if that's okay. And obviously all the others can join in as they want. Leon, the stage is yours.
First introduction, we have just a couple of minutes left. So yes, as Cristina said, my name is Leon Özcan, and I'm a researcher at the Heinz Nixdorf Institute. And yes, my role is the coordination of the mentioned research project called AI Marketplace.
Super, Leon, thank you so much. And I'm also happy to have you here. I know there's a lot going on, and the project takes time away because we want to be quick and bring out soon a next generation of the AI marketplace, or a next edition. But still, it would be nice to get your opinion. So why does the AI marketplace indeed focuses on product creation? Why exactly that?
So first of all, maybe I have to explain what is product creation. Product creation includes all the activities and processes from the generation of a product idea to the start of production. And in our research project, we are focusing on AI applications which support those activities and processes. And yeah, the added value is that we can increase development capacities, that we can reduce development times, or that we even can reduce manufacturing costs, because you have to know a large part of the manufacturing costs of a product are determined during the product creation process, and avoiding errors with AI can save you a lot of money there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And having still the picture in mind that we've seen on the last slide from Paul, where we could see, okay, there is one thing coming into the market. In that case, it was electricity, and everything changed. What do you, and maybe also others that spoke today or are here in the audience, what do you think is this jump into a completely different future when we look at the AI marketplace? What will really change, and what does that mean for companies?
Especially with my point of view related to the AI marketplace, what is changing the way of how we are developing new products in the future. And companies have to adjust to it and have to get to know what kind of AI they can use during their product creation process.
Mm-hmm. So this could be super interesting then for companies as such. If there's companies with us or later on listening to our video here that we will upload on YouTube, and they say, okay, that's really cool. So how can I cooperate with the AI Marketplace?
They can be, of course, a user of our platform, but there are also other possibilities how they can initiate a deeper collaboration with us. And one way to do so is the so-called associated partnership. First of all, participation in the AI Marketplace as an associated partner is a declaration of intent without obligations, and you can get access to several benefits. For example, you get access to our offers, our research results. You get direct access to our events and publications, and there are also some associated partners with whom we are initiating pilot projects. And yes, those are the benefits of a so-called associated partnership.
Okay, and I guess we can find all these details on the website.
Of course.
I shared the link just before. I will share it again while we're speaking. So, but allow me one more question to you. So, if I now want to find opportunities, so opportunities out of AI and let's say topics, technology, applications, whatever is around there when it comes to AI. And I think there's something that I would love to pick up for my company for product creation. How would that work? You mentioned already services. What is that about?
Yeah, an important question, especially for industrial companies. And we are offering an so-called potential map. In the potential map, we are describing AI potentials in product creation. One example is intelligent comparison of requirement documents, for example. And our potential map is a good source of inspiration for industrial companies. Using it, they get to know what they can do with AI in product creation.
It's very specific, so thank you. Yeah, let's check if we have something in the chat here. Somebody may be asking questions. If not, I may have maybe one last question for you, but let's give it a moment and see if something's coming up here in terms of our audience. So let's give it a minute. I think we already gave such a great insight that there's not so many more questions upcoming. But then I would say, if you could look into the future of the project of the AI Marketplace, future of the next, let's say, 12 months or 18 months ahead, where do you think will be all standing? Let's just maybe think end of 2022 or mid 2022. Where do you think where will we be?
So right now we are a research project funded by the German government, and looking in the future to the end of the upcoming year, it's our vision that we are not a research project anymore. So the vision is that we are a company which is developing this field of AI and product creation, and makes it possible that companies get access to the AI potentials related or accessible in the product creation process.
Super. Well, it's a pleasure, really, Leon, to get all your answers, because you're so crispy and sharp. That's really, really nice. So I would ask for the last time into our audience if there is one more question, for which we are a little bit over time, but I think 1 minute we can still make it. So let's see. Here I think we have one. So if I run a startup for SME or an SME, and there is not the exact AI solution for creating my product, can I get in touch with the team of AI Marketplace and you will match me with a partner?
So I can give a short answer there. It's a simple yes for the first platform stage. It's so-called intelligent partner matching, and that's what we like to do there.
Okay. yeah, I think it's one of the key benefits, and that's also why the KI-Marktplatz, or AI Marketplace in English, had been created. Well, yeah, so I guess we can close then slowly this fantastic afternoon event here, because we really spent the whole arch from an introduction of AI, of the AI world, where we're standing, what we're doing, up to concrete use cases, looking deeper into the marketplace as such, showing also at the, having a look at the framework and regulations around it, and now even with with Paul, making a little jump into the future, and then with Leon, very concretely how things run on the marketplace. So I hope this fil rouge was interesting to all of our participants. I want to say thank you to all of you who stayed with us this afternoon in terms of giving keynotes, doing a wonderful Q&A, being open to lots of questions, and then obviously at the end also attending and hopefully joining the AI Marketplace. And said that, don't miss to get the benefits of AI Marketplace. We shared the link a couple of times while we were speaking. Sign up, get affiliated, and get the benefits. I think even those who are getting now on board have also the chance to give feedback, and maybe even here and there a little bit form the road and the way we KI-Marktplatz and AI Marketplace will look in the future. So said that, thank you very much to all. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope to see most of you soon also in the in another session that we do around AI and FIWARE at the FIWARE Smart Fest, June 8 to 10. Also here I shared the link. Sign up, you will learn even more there also about the AI Marketplace. So goodbye to everybody. Have a great afternoon.